From the southernmost point of Dorne to the lands of always winter, and what is west of west and the shadows and east, this is Casterly Talk, living in that west of Westeros world sometimes. Hey everybody, we're here for another Game of Thrones rewatch, a look back at an episode in the show we all love. Sometimes you love to hate it or love to fight it. I contend that's still passion. We are now here looking at Season 3, Episode 6, so the 26th overall episode in the series, out of 73. This is The Climb. As we always say, if you are, for whatever reason, watching the show for the first time, not this show, but Game of Thrones, and you are following along with me, I do get to not only spoilers for the episodes, but plots and scenes and characters and episodes to come. We talk about that. So just be warned. We love this focusing on what the episode was back in the day. I love diving into the themes and lessons the episodes present. We'll do that as always. But starting with last week's episode, I really also want to take some time to look at the episode. What was my thoughts then? What is the legacy episode? What is it known for? And kind of celebrating the episodes and that way as well. So this episode, The Climb, was originally broadcast on May 5th, 2013. Alec Sakharov, I added an A at the top. That's my bad. Was the director. Benioff and Weiss were the credited writers. Cinematographer was David Katz-Nelson, and Oral Nori Oti was the editor. So this is an episode I've been looking forward to taking a look back at, because it's an episode that I can really say was an early contender for my least favorite episode back in 2013. At the time of air, halfway through season 3, I'll say it was my least favorite episode. That's changed. I've changed my viewing habits, the way I take in content like Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, how I will take in House of the Dragon, and a franchise and a saga like Star Wars that I break down weekly on Force Center. I just look at them just an entirely different way than I did back in 2013. I was plot heavy. I was dancing on the surface of the show, trying to figure out the big, well, what if this happens, and who will be on the throne, and all the things that are fun that kept bringing us back every week. And still, mentioning House of the Dragon, I'll be wondering that too. Plot points. What's happening next? What's going to happen? But I take everything in and now on what I hope is not even necessarily deeper level, just focusing on what the show is communicating in that particular episode. So with that said, I look at The Climb a lot differently now than I do then. Also now I have the benefit of the show wrapping up, and little scenes, little moments. There's a necklace moment with Sansa in this episode that meant nothing to me in 2013, but now means a lot. Originally, this episode was the second week in a row of just kind of moving pieces around the board and slowing down to analyze our characters, which is not new to Game of Thrones. But it's important to note that the fourth episode of season 3, as we've been talking about, and now as watch has ended, it ends with Dany's big Dracarys moment, big reveals. And episode 5 has the big Jaime Lannister, Brienne of Tarth bathtub scene. You get that perspective change on Jaime, the information, blah, 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 and it's big. It's not Dracarys big, but it's also big, and you're sitting with that. You're asking yourself questions about that. It's roaming around your head. Jaime's point of view is now living rent-free in your soul. So this episode comes along, and it's about chaos. It's about The Climb. We're going to talk about that. But there's a lot of pieces being moved around, a lot of things being put into place for characters that it's going to lead to bigger things. And it's like a second half kickoff here to get us to the second, get us through the second part of season 3. Makes sense. All that makes sense logistically, writing wise, structure wise. But when you're watching it, you're going to feel that. And I think this episode, because chaos is a theme, and that runs all through it, there are a lot of scenes, characters, almost like one-offs. It's a roll call at time. Again, it's a bit of a resetting of the board, which is great. It's needed. 5.5 million people watched this episode in the first run, which was the highest mark yet, and was the fourth straight week that Game of Thrones set a record for itself. It kept breaking its own records. I think the previous week we talked about 5.3 million. So now we're at 5.5 million people are watching. Season 3 is picking up. And I was looking at some analysis on one of the Ice and Fire wikis there. I think it was just the straight up regular Game of Thrones wiki. And whoever, a lot of people can change those wikis, so I don't quite know who to give credit to, but they pointed out correctly that the next episode next week, which is the Bear and the Maiden Fair, which is a great episode, 4.8 million. We did not retain, and that's often not a reflection on episode 7. It's a reflection on episode 6. I no longer consider this my one of my least favorite episodes. No, I absolutely love so many things in here, and we talk about what this episode is known for. But it also just, here I am. I after episode 4 and Dracarys and the Unsullied marching out of Astapor, I wanted Dany to get on a series of ships and head to King's Landing right then and there. I wanted action to happen right then and there. And, that's not how it works, especially in these mid-seasons here. This particular run of Game of Thrones, season 7 and 8 start to pick up. But I think that's because, for me, a lot of things were settled. Let's get to it. Let's get to the fighting. I would always argue in season 7, particularly, I didn't want to see Davos and Jon Snow in a boat for 3 weeks. Let's get to where we need to go. But we don't need to get to where we need to go in season 3. The show can take its time, and patience is a lesson. And we can debate season 7 when we get there. I am never going to argue with wanting more of Game of Thrones. Another episode per each season, 7 and 8, would have been great for me. But here we are in the middle of season 3. Dany's burnt down the slave traders, at least in one city, and we're ready to go. And this episode was not ready to go. This episode was having us slow down and analyze our characters. Analyze, quite frankly, what the show is about. This is for the throne. This is the Game of Thrones. That's the marketing. That's the question we're asking every week. And it's a fun question to ask. I used to love coming up with Lon Harris. We'd come up with the odds each week on our Screen Junkies Game of Thrones show about who's going to take the Iron Throne. That stuff's great, but not what the show is really about, what it's really trying to communicate. In this show, this particular episode, I felt, is like, let's concentrate on what all of our characters are doing. And if you want them to win the Game of Thrones, or you want them to survive, how can they possibly do that? This episode was an award-winning episode for special effects and for sound. The Hollywood Post Alliance Awards gave this episode a win, and the Visual Effects Society gave it a win as well. And I got to tell you, as technology gets bigger and better, where we are now in 2021, you look back at some of the early seasons of Game of Thrones, and you see some of the limitations they ran up against. Even later on, I am not the end of season 5 with Daenerys and the dragon ride. It's not my favorite looking special effect in the show. I think that even got better. The climb itself, I think, does really, for me personally, it really stands the test of time. I don't know what you think about that. Let me know. Reach out on Twitter using the hashtag Casterly Talk. But I've always kind of, even watching it today, right before I went to air, it gets me. The wind, the sound effects, the fall, the near fall. Heights don't get me. The fear falling definitely gets me, which I guess means a fear of heights. I don't know. But so this gets me, and it stands the test of time. So that makes some sense to me. Like I said, the episode does seem to jump around a lot. Not a bad thing, especially in this point of the show. It's a resetting of the deck. So what is this episode known for? I think there's a couple things. I mentioned the climb, and it's an excellent tension-filled sequence that just pairs nicely with something else this episode's remembered for. Olenna Tyrell and Tywin Lannister, I think, still this episode, I should say, with their one-on-one verbal duel. You would almost call it a verbal duel. It is wonderful. It's some of Game of Thrones. It's just best writing, best acting. It's a great scene. We're going to talk about it. Weiss, DB Weiss does say in the extra segment on HBO Max, and which is on the DVD Blu-rays, that this is the sword fight without the swords between Olenna and Tywin. So definitely this episode's remembered for that. But I think first and foremost, Baelish's chaos is a ladder speech. And going back to 2013 for me, sitting there with this episode after it aired, I was like a lot of people saying, well, nothing really happened in that episode, which is just quite frankly, like I said, never true. That is never true. Something's always happening, not just in Game of Thrones or Star Wars, these big genre franchises, but in a show, every scene's telling you something. Every scene is putting something out there and moving something forward. It might be up to you to figure it out, and it might be smaller, it might be quieter, but something's going on. So that said, the episode ends, and I sure did love Baelish's speech, and I know a lot of people love Baelish's speech. I have a friend that she has Baelish's speech as like an audio file, and it like pops up in her car. You'd be right along, and Baelish just starts speaking his chaos is a ladder speech, and that was in 2013, a moment I absolutely loved, and now in 2021, that is it's and it's from Baelish, so it's not necessarily a good guy's point of view. It's not necessarily true. We dealt a lot last week with honor, and the show continues to deal with honor. And we're seeing Arya Stark, especially with the Brotherhood, trying to just come to terms with this definition of what is honor and what her father's honorable, and he lost his head for it. And these jackholes get to keep their heads. And now this week we see them sell Gendry to Melisandre, and it's Arya is struggling with what honor is. And I think a lot about that bathtub scene with Jaime and Bran in episode 5. I think there's a lot of Bran, this oath keeper, this oath maker, this person of honor, this person who wants to be treated and receive the treatment that she maybe likes to give others, and just to get a whole new perspective on Jaime Lannister and a whole new twist on what honor in this land and in this world actually is. It's interesting to go into this week, and you have Baelish's speech, which stands the test of time as a moment in the show, and it's a cold, hard, perhaps evil truth, but it's a truth. I talk often about me and Andres Cabrera, who will, is a part of the show. We'll be back on shortly as we try to move forward towards House of the Dragon and stuff. Andres and I love Tywin Lannister. We're very aware he's one of the bad guys. We're very aware of his faults, very aware of the things he's done wrong and continues to do wrong up until his death, and think he probably got what he deserved. But along the way, we just love Tywin for a lot of different reasons. Number one, Charles Dance and his performances time and time again, even in this episode. It's hard. You kind of get behind him just because of what Charles Dance brings to the role. But a lot of it, for me, is this idea that in this particular world, I'm not saying in Earth, I'm not saying United States of America now, but in Westeros and Essos and Planetos, wherever George wants to put us, Tywin is doing what is needed to survive, what is needed to not even win. He maybe wants to win. He wants to keep power and control. Again, bad guy, get it. But Baelish in this moment too, this chaos is a ladder speech. You hear the words and you're like, he ain't wrong. And I think a lot of the characters are learning the lessons he's talking about. I think Baelish wants to use this. His climb is about a form of power, a power he's not going to do good things with. I think if you can climb and get to the top there, and you have that power, and power is something you can use to protect those without it, is something that was just said in Star Wars Visions. If you're watching Star Wars Visions, and that's a line that stuck with me from the Elder Star Wars Visions episode. I love that line, and that's so the climb itself isn't necessarily bad. It's not inherently bad. It's not inherently good. The climb is the climb. And what you do at the end of that climb, if you survive it, is maybe where honor comes in. That's just food for thought. Beyond the walls of Game of Thrones here. Impact on this story, like I said, this episode does move pieces into place. It does. That's a fact. But as I did in 2013 and maybe over the years, even looking at this particular episode, and just writing the episode off as an episode that just moves pieces into place. I think for me, I'm saying this to myself. I'm not saying this to anyone out there. I'm saying this to myself. It's kind of the wrong take. A lot's going on. A lot of things that are foreshadowing things with more meaning that we love to talk about. Sam and Gilly, we got that scene. He reveals he's got this dragon glass dagger. That's going to come into play, not just real soon for him specifically, Sam the Slayer, but also we're going to see what that means going forward. It's going to have a lot to do with the show in season 7 and 8. Roz is killed. Esme Bianco, tip of the cap to her, and her great performance as Roz, taking a one-off character and turn it into a regular around these parts. Is unfortunately killed. We don't really see it. Not that I would have wanted to, but she's killed at the hands of Joffrey, and we are spinning off wildly towards Joffrey's end. Not a lot of Joffrey in this middle section of season 3. But everyone else is kind of reacting to him, right? They're taking actions maybe against him. They're plotting against him. Yeah, I would even say Tywin is here to get control of Joffrey. Joffrey is still kind of the center of a lot of people's stories here and quests. And to actually see this is up until this point, again, he's done a ton of things. But up until this point, he's an angry, evil boy ripping wings off bugs. Not good. We don't like that. There's an indication of deeper problems. But it's just been that. I don't want to say he's been harmless, but it's just been that. I mean, his actions have led to the death of people, let's be clear. But we have Tyrion learning in this episode that it wasn't Cersei that plotted to have him killed in the Battle of Blackwater Bay by Sir Mandon Moore. It was Joffrey. And we hear that, and you think it's Joffrey. Wow, Joffrey was willing to go that far to have someone else kill his uncle. And then this episode ends with Joffrey doing this horrific murder of Ross. So now we are fully aware. We are spinning and spiraling towards Joffrey's end, and perhaps it's something we want. We have got, in terms of foreshadowing things with more meaning, just the impact on the story. Big ones with Rob striking a deal with the Freys, those wonderful sons, Black Walder and his brother coming in here, and Rob, we know his fate is sealed. Jaime being released by the Boltons, and even Jaime kind of asks Roose Bolton here, why, you should send me to Rob. You haven't. Why? Instead, you're here watching me fail at dinner. Why? That is a big clue. I don't know where you were in 2013, if you were a show-only person at that point. I gotta admit, I don't. It wasn't that I thought Roose Bolton was a nice guy. It's just misunderstood. He never did sit right with me, but they do a good job in season 2 of kind of painting Roose Bolton as someone who's there for Rob, is willing to do what Rob needs to do, and a dark, moody, somber guy, but seems like the Boltons are. And we don't know who Ramsay is at this point. Again, show only. You might have a different view if you read the books, all that kind of stuff. I get it. But if you're just watching along, the connections maybe not as prevalent to you as it might be for others. I get it. Even though Roose in season 2 says some big clues of what he's going to have his son do. But it's this episode that, now it has an impact on the story going forward. Now you're starting to really see it. And now you can look back. If you miss it, you can still look back at the stuff going on with Roose in this scene. And I love Melisandre showing up to meet with the Brotherhood. It's this kind of, almost this random one-off kind of interaction there. Talk about some of my favorite scenes. But Melisandre and Arya, eyes you'll shut forever. We'll meet again. Melisandre, just telling Arya about all the eyes she'll shut. Clearly, after season 8, has a ton more meaning. You can argue, was this how far back was this meant to be? I think it was a bit of an adjustment, for sure, but I think it lands, and I think this is what we're doing. We're going back, and for me, 8 seasons completed. I look back at this episode, this moment, and it's fun. It's fun. It's not even that it means more now. Yeah, it's just fun to see, and fun to see what's coming. So that's there. And also Mel, there's some other stuff there, small moments, Roose Bolton saying, I don't partake of the alcohol. Funny little moment here because Jaime's got to dig back at him. But what Jaime says about, not trusting people who don't drink, that's something we all should have listened to. Catelyn Stark finds that out in a bad way later on. And then Melisandre meeting Beric Dondarrion and the conversation with Thoros of Myr. I love all that for what it means for Jon Snow, her lack of belief, the way she struggles. She doesn't necessarily even believe now. And Thoros of Myr has some great words. Paul Kaye's great in this episode, but just talking about how he said the words, but he didn't believe them. And I think it's interesting to see Melisandre kind of reacting to this news that Beric's been brought back, not just once, but many times. It's shock on Melisandre's face because, again, up until this point, we've seen her do some wonderful things. She hasn't had the conversation with Selyse in the bathtub, admitting that some of the things she does are little put-ons or fake. They're potions to make things make her seem more powerful than she is. It's a trick on men to hold on to her power or bend them to her will. We haven't really got that yet. Up until now, Melisandre's delivered on a lot of things promised, and she is a threat, and she is poisoning the well with Stannis. There's a lot of things going on. And this is you talk about, again, things with more meaning. Looking at this episode, watching her, it's awe, but I think it's a lot of shock, and I think it's her own level of disbelief and wanting to know. You've been on the other side. Beric Dondarrion, Richard Dormer, that great line. Oh, the other side, there is no other side, only darkness. To have that, it's the first time I think we see a little bit of a crack in the facade that is Melisandre. So I love that scene. And finally, want to mention it, but one of the ones I don't know quite when I really picked it up. Obviously, after season 4 is when it really comes into play. Again, if you're a show only or the show's leading the way for you through the Song of an Ice and Fire world. But the whole thing with Shay and Sansa, the highlight of the episode clearly is the focus is Tyrion coming in to deliver the news. But Sansa's picking out her dress that she'll wear to the Marjorie Joffrey wedding, and she spends a lot of time talking about the necklace. And as we all know, that will not be the necklace she wears to the wedding. So we love, before we get into a lot of these scenes and lessons here today, I love to hear from all of you. If you want to add to the conversation every week, I sometimes, a lot of times, pre-tape these episodes. We've been on a week-to-week schedule for now, but just in case, you can use hashtag Casterly Talk on Twitter and just let me know. Like Ranger Donald, who wrote in saying season 3, episode 6, S3E6. Couple things he wanted to say about it. We get some of the best power versus power scenes in the entire series in this episode, says Donald. Tywin versus Olenna, Varys versus Littlefinger, all masters of playing the game to get what's best for them or their family, with each trying to one up each other. Especially when Olenna brings up the rumors of Jaime and Cersei, with Tywin showing signs that he knows it's true, but he chooses to believe all the lies, which mirrors the Robert's theory that he makes himself believe a lie about Lyanna because he can't face the real truth. Yeah, I love that too. And speaking of Tywin and how much I do enjoy Tywin, but love studying his faults and foibles and mistakes and just the evil sides of him here. Yeah, he can't face the truth. It's his one thing. It's his failure as a parent. It's what gets him killed. It's what Cersei, I think's trying to say to him early in this season. You want to protect your legacy. You want to protect this dynasty, or this dynasty, as they say. I'm the one to do it. I'm the one listening. And he won't. He treats her as property. He treats her as a woman. He treats her less than. He protects the name, but it's the Lannister name, not the names of Cersei, Jaime, and Tyrion. He doesn't care one word, one bit about them. It's the name, the house that Tywin's protecting. So he just cannot face the truth. I've always taken it that Tywin deep down knows. I think Cersei says that directly to him later on, but I've always taken by this time, he just can't deny it. It makes probably too much sense. But it's also not just a denial of a truth. It is something that he can't. He acknowledges with Olenna. All right, great, Olenna. It's true. But what does that mean? That means Joffrey's not the king, which means your Marjorie won't be the queen. So what are we going to do? Which ties again into some of the stuff with Baelish at the end. What's the realm? What is the realm? We tell us the story of Aegon melted down thousands of blades to make this throne. It's 200. Now that is show only, we know. In the book, It's described as the throne is high above, and it is 1,000 swords, which is fine. I think that would have been maybe fun to see, but it would not have been practical for the show. It would not have fit into any budget constraints. And I think this episode, almost a side tangent here, I apologize, but I think Baelish explaining that the show throne is very different as described. It's similar to how this season starts with Cersei talking about Tyrion's nose, because in the book his nose is pretty much off, removed. He's more hideous than you can imagine, and they're not going to do that on the show. They're not going to do that with Tyrion, with Peter Dinklage. So she addresses it. Oh, I heard you lost your nose. It's not as bad as I've seen. I love when they kind of play with it. They did it with Sir Barristan Selmy last week, right? The head of the Kingsguard should be on the small council. That's the way it's got. He's not on the show. So they use that and they spin it off into a great little plot point with Jorah, who now knows maybe Barristan doesn't know his secret that Jorah was once a spy for Varys, spying on Dany. So I think the show knows it sometimes has to do different things than the books. So how can you spin that off in a very productive way for your story? This is one of my favorite examples of that. It's not 1,000 blades. It's probably not even 200. But this is the story we tell ourselves. This is the lies we believe. Varys has this thought that, without those lies, we have chaos. We'll get to that. But you have to hold on to this. Everyone's holding on to this. And it's not necessarily a great thing, is what Baelish is saying. And I think Tywin is holding on to the lie he's telling himself. He has to. He has to for a lot of reasons. So power versus power. Varys, Littlefinger, Tywin, Olenna. There's a lot of one-on-one scenes in this episode. So let's take a quick little pause. If you're watching along on YouTube, cheers to you. Let's talk about some themes and lessons here in episode 6 of season 3, The Climb in Game of Thrones. All right, let's get into the themes and lessons of the 26th episode overall. I was looking at this episode and you're trying to see what jumps out. You're trying to see what is the connective thread. What is this episode trying to tell you? And that's where this idea of the pieces being moved around the board it actually seems like chaos to me. We have a lot of characters in bad spots, or they think they're in bad spots, or they think they're in the spot that they want to be in, but really they're not. A lot of truths out there to discover. We've dealt with that on the show a lot. We know that what's really inside you, who you really are. Big themes all through Game of Thrones. But this particular episode, it's called The Climb. It's not called Chaos. It's not called Chaos as a ladder. It's The Climb. And I love how the wall is used as a symbol for perhaps everyone, and this ladder that everyone is climbing in Game of Thrones. There's themes to be found within that, but Sam and Gilly start us out. Sam is adorable in his own way, reveals he's got the dragon glass. He's got a blade to slay a dragon, essentially. It's a fairy tale. Doesn't even know it's real, but he has it. So to me, there's a theme there of what you have already is what you need. And you don't often think that. Sam doesn't know that he's in the right spot or he has the right tool. He's still got to find that out. But beyond that, though, Gilly is saying, is the wall as big as they say? They have a conversation about the wall. We also jump from that to a verbal duel with Mira and Osha. And they are in a spot where they need to work together because they are all they have. There's chaos amongst them. Mira and Osha are having a fight. They're not getting along so far. We know that. But Bran says at one point, we can't fight each other. We'll never make it to the wall. Ygritte then says with Jon early on, great scene with her and Jon, you're my woman now. We'll talk about that. But she says, I've waited my whole life to see the world from up there. The wall is this episode because the climb of the wall, getting to the wall, on the other side of the wall, Jojen has a vision of Jon Snow. He's on the wrong side of the wall, surrounded by the wrong people. Chaos is looming. But that climb, the wall, is big in all the stories here. It's this virtual wall, if you will, a metaphorical wall. But we also have the actual wall to climb. And I think out of this episode, out of this first scene, Sam and Gilly being the first scene is a really interesting, very quiet scene. It's a very small scene. They don't even move, right? Talking about moving pieces for this episode, they don't even move. They're right there. They're at the camp. They don't get moving until next episode or the next time we see them, right? But this is this fact that you are already where you need to be. You're already on the direction whether you feel it or not. Now, Sam knows the need to get to the wall, but he's going to find out he gets there for a lot of different reasons. So I love that there. I love that stuff. Again, it's small with Mira and Osha. We don't get a lot with them, unfortunately, but I love that scene, and I love just Bran putting it out there. We can't fight each other. What you have, us, it's already what we need. This is all we need. There's this theme again. Now, Egret and John, great conversation. Great conversation about their budding relationship and things in the past, I guess you could say. I see this, again, going to this idea that this is all it's all chaos right now. Everything going on is chaos. Everyone is all over the map, literally. And you got to if you have this question of, hey, are you aware that you already have what you need on the path? I see Egret. There's a lie she's probably telling herself about John, but she addresses it, and because she addresses it, I don't think she's believing in the lie. I think Egret sees the situation. She wants to use it. Don't ever betray me. But John kind of can't see it. John's still on his own hero's journey. It's interesting, and these are nothing I'm saying here is fact. This is just me looking at the scene and trying to engage with it here. On the surface, the plot of it is Egret knows he's probably still a crow. You can't just dump that. She wants to believe he can. She probably is already thinking they never should have left the cave, but she sees the actual situation. She's not going to the idea that John it might be a crow doesn't it matters, but it doesn't matter to her other than just don't betray me. We are together. I'm your woman. You're my man, right? It's a country western ballad here. So it's a powerful moment. It's a powerful declaration of it's us versus them, and that doesn't stick. That doesn't stay. And he does betray her in a way. I mean, quite frankly, just betrays her. But we kind of already saw that coming. But I think she was fighting against that. So it's not quite the same as Tywin not facing his truth about his kids. I think Egret sees the situation. Tormund has that great line about sink your metal deep and make sure it holds before you take your next step. That's something I think Baelish would actually really respect if you're looking at the wall as a symbol for what everyone else is doing it. And Baelish believes the climb is the only thing that's real. This is great advice. It might be chaotic, it might be dangerous, but when you make your move, sink that metal deep to make sure that's the right move, and then make it. So I think it does kind of tie together a little bit there with Egret seeing the actual truth of the situation. Maybe she doesn't have a grip on what to make, what to climb up to next. They're going to find out though once they get to that wall. It's a dangerous climb. I love all the stuff going on here with the Archer and Arya. Arya learning to learning a little bit better, but Archer telling her you're not as good as you think you are. Your eye knows where it wants to go. Trust your eye. Love that just as a little bit of a life lesson and everything that's going forward. And if you're talking about the climb and you don't know the climb's not clear, you want to aim. You want to know exactly where you're going. Sink that metal deep, yes, but sometimes you're not going to know. Just trust your eye. Don't aim. Just go. But this leads into the great scene with Melisandre showing up, and you feel for Gendry here. But there's also another example of someone who has more than he needs. He just doesn't know it. He's not aware. The Brotherhood is climbing in the chaos too. This idea, again, chaos running all through this episode. I love this idea of the Brotherhood doing something both for the Lord of Light, but also for gold. And that's what's real. Everything else they probably consider an illusion, but the gold is very real. Side conversation on this here is this idea of the Lord of Light. And I remember having these conversations, particularly with Lon Harris and Rachel Cushing, leading into season 8, and wondering what's going to happen. And this was something that was we brought up a lot of, of all these religions in this world, Westeros, Essos, and beyond. Is there one that works? There's a lot of things a lot of prophecies are put forth in this story that are interpreted differently. Some prophecies just might be wrong. Some might be off base. Some just might be what you make of it. A red comet means something for everybody. This we know. But the question always came back to the idea of, is the Lord of Light, is R'hllor, is this religion, is this the one that might actually be true? I think you could point to some stuff in the past with the old gods and the children of the forest. Yeah, but it's so far gone. Who knows about that there? Who knows if those powers still exist, if they do at all? Magic has returned to the land. Magic isn't necessarily religion. It's not necessarily a god. The Lord of Light seems to be the only one delivering until I think the Night King emerges, and then that's the story. It's the War for the Dawn right there. So I love this particular episode. If you want to get deep into the religions of Westeros, and as I always say, I recommend going to some of those other channels and podcasts, History of Westeros, all this kind of stuff. Look for them on YouTube that probably have spent a lot of time diving into the religions of Westeros and what is true. I've always believed the seven gods, not true. 7-pointed star, the new gods, nah. Nah, I don't believe him for a second. A power structure, perhaps, to hold on, to hold people down below. It's probably inspiration. It serves. It's what it does. But I come down on the side of whatever the Lord of Light's got going on. I consider that dark magic or not. I don't know, but I consider it the one to be perhaps the most effective. We'll just say. So love seeing that again, and I'm really I love the idea of Melisandre being a little shocked at the success of some of it because she's been around so long and probably seen a lot of things that have worked. I also love the side note too of the high priest sending Thoros out, and she's kind of like, Thoros, what the hell happened, man? You had an assignment. Did it work? She knows the answer, but did it work? Nah, I failed. I love that line there. Roose is climbing in the chaos. Roose Bolton is definitely climbing in the chaos. He is making a move here. But what about his son, Ramsay and Reek? Pure chaos. It's a tough scene to watch. Of all the scenes, this is that flaying of the pinky gets me every time. I'm screaming at the screen. Reek, Theon, give up, give it up. This is the scene where Ramsay is trying to get him to, and again, for the show, we don't yet know it's Ramsay. We don't know that yet, so you might be trying to figure it out. He tries to get Theon to guess it. Theon settles on the Karstarks after a funny moment where Umbers, and Ramsay's like, "So I look like a fucking Umber," which, considering how we end up working with the Umbers, is funny to me too. Settle on the Karstarks. And it's fresh in our mind. We've just last week seen Rickard Karstark beheaded, so we're familiar with that name. We've heard it. So when Theon says it, I think as an audience, if you're completely unaware of who Ramsay is and what's going on, I think you might buy it. I think for that second you buy it. But it's chaos and total chaos there. And I thought Ramsay's his two memorable quotes. We'll talk about one in a bit here, but Ramsay's just absolutely plays with Theon's mind as he does. Yep, you're right. I'm a Karstark. How'd you guess? Did you see the banners coming in here? No. And then when he reveals, no, that's not the truth, it says, you forgot to ask the right question. It's brutal. I'm not saying Theon needs to learn that lesson, but that lesson popped out to me too, of what you forgot to ask the right question and how we think to go forward, what we think we need to do to go forward. Might not be the way to go forward. And I think in a roundabout way, I say that ties in a little bit what Baelish is saying. The fall breaks some people, and you got to know how to climb. We also have Loras and Sansa. And I'm skipping over Tywin and Olenna here, which is this great blow-by-blow, just verbal duel. But Loras and Sansa is only seeing what she hopes for and not what is really happening. We know. We have the benefit of knowing Loras here. And it's a fun scene. Finn Jones plays it so well. I love everything about it. It's not a pendant. It's not a pin. It's a brooch. I mean, yeah, and he's poor Loras. But poor Sansa, she can't really see the truth. It's not a lie. She's not even holding on to a lie. She can't even see the lie. She's only hoping for, what she actually wants, and not seeing what is really happening. She's not asking the right questions. Sansa is chaos. Chaos is a ladder. A lot of things as we wrap up a kind of a scene by scene look at what's going on here. But before we get to the big one here, Cersei and Tyrion, the revelation that it wasn't Cersei that tried to have him killed. It's Tyrion, and it's almost as if Tyrion's seeing now a truth. And to me, that's a little shocking that it would have been any kind of surprise to him that Joffrey would have had him killed. But Tyrion sees it. The game is still going on. This slides into the great scene with Tyrion and Sansa. That scene into the great scene with Varys and Baelish, and their wonderful stories. Also, side note, I love Varys saying, "Who doesn't like to see their friends fail now and then?" But it turns very real, very quick. Baelish saying, "The realm. Do you know what the realm is?" And going into this whole thing about chaos is clearly this theme. It's a strategy from Baelish, and we know he sowed it from the beginning. And I love when that reveal finally comes. I don't care whether you learned it in the books or learned it in the show. When you finally learn that all of this kind of began, the chaos began with Baelish, it makes a lot of sense. And why? Just to watch the world burn, just to burn it all down so he could rule the ashes. I love that about Baelish. It's I'm not saying I root for him, but it's great. And this moment, Varys always never wavers from this, right? To the bitter end. Talk about things with more meaning. When you hear Varys now say he does it for the realm, you believe it, and you know it's going to cost him his life. Without the lies, what do we have? It's chaos, and it's a pit. And then Baelish's great line, the speech. You too should clip out Aiden Gillen saying it and put it in your car to motivate you. Chaos isn't a pit, chaos is a ladder. Many who try to climb it fall and never get to try again. The fall breaks them. We get to reveal that Raz is now dead. And some are given the chance to climb. We're on Sansa now, but they refuse. They cling to the realm or the gods or love, illusions. Only the ladder is real. The climb is all there is. Oh, it's a great thing. And looking back now, this episode is very poignant. It's very purposeful. It's moving pieces around, but it's saying that the moving of the pieces is kind of it. It's not the end. It's the climb. That's what we're watching. That's why we're here. And that's what these characters are trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. It could be a bit of a nihilistic view, cynical view, or just a pure evil view from Baelish. Not saying gods or religions aren't real. I'm not saying love isn't real. I'm not just writing it all off as illusions, but it's all just things, states of mind, states of beings, things that happened, plots in our own life. And we all want it to get somewhere. We all have hopes like Sansa. We all don't want to face truths like Tywin or discover truths we maybe suspected like Tyrion. We want the answers like Reek because we're in horrible pain. We want to move forward. We want to survive. We want to just get to the wall like Sam and Gilly. We want to get beyond the wall like Bran and Osha, Mira and Jojen and Hodor. We all want that. But those are these destinations. Really, this truly is all about the climb. I'm not saying I find my own inspiration from Baelish's speech. Again, it's at best cynical, at worst maybe pure evil. But also, I think it's true. Opportunity, right? Opportunity, chaos, a ladder. You might only get one chance to climb it, but it's all we got. And I'm not just talking about corporate success or promotions, career, love. I'm just talking about existing. We only get one chance to climb it. The fall might break you, but you got to get back up and try again. You might be hanging by an absolute wire. That climbing scene, I don't have too much to say about the climbing scene other than it plays out so perfectly. And in an episode that starts out by everyone talking about the wall, talking about wanting to see the top of the wall and looking out on the world from up there. We got to get beyond it. We got to get below it. We all have this wall, and for this episode to end with this speech and the climb, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's Game of Thrones poetry, and it doesn't. It does this episode, this moment, this sequence hasn't just stood the test of time for me. It's grown in purpose. It's grown in importance. There's a lot of little things all the way through it, little favorite moments and scenes I love. Sam dropping the name of Darian, the singer at the wall. That's ends up being more of a book character, but fun reference. I do love the Melisandre and Thoros exchange. I could go in it all day. Just same with the time when Olenna one is absolutely better, but has more impact, I should say. But the Melisandre Thoros, I love their interactions, and I love Thoros just simply saying, "I failed." Um, but also just again, Paul K is so great talking about Barrack and talking about belief, and you talk about chaos and the climb. Thoros has got all these things in his head. He's got the right words to say. He knows it. He just says it, but he does. He says, he says in this episode, I didn't say those words to because I knew what I was doing or believed. He was my friend, and he was dead. I find that scene. I find it moving, particularly moving, quite frankly, with Thoros. And speaking about why he did it and the connection, and maybe later on, Melisandre, why is she doing it? She can't maybe bring Jon Snow back right away because this spirit of he was my friend and he was dead is definitely not there. And I think later on, Melisandre finds a purpose. She believes she has a purpose. What she does in season 8 and comes back has a purpose. And perhaps some of this scene maybe clicked in with her. Maybe. I don't know. We would be remiss to not discuss Ramsay Bolton saying, if you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention. That was a line that became very popular right away, but also was a line that was often used going into season 6, 7, and 8, particularly season 8. And I think particularly coming out of season 8. If you didn't enjoy season 8, if you didn't enjoy that it didn't end with a big happy party with peace across the land, a lot of people went back to this line. Funny little moment. Edmur's reaction to the wedding arrangement, him now having to marry a Frey. We know that's not going to turn out good for anybody, but just great reaction there. So clueless. And then in that whole scene, the Blackfish, Brendan Tully, the lords of my fist are about to compel your teeth. Love that one there. We always like to highlight episode stars, so let's highlight Charles Dance and late Diana Rigg. Tywin versus Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns, versus the powerful Man of Gold. Man, God, it's just the best. And she loses this round, but she's going to get a big win pretty soon here. Tell Cersei it was me. I love everything about it. Watch that scene over and over again. It's a jab, it's a jab, it's a jab, and it's all these truths. And then they too have to kind of they have to use the lies, right? They're afraid. I wonder what Baelish would say about it. Baelish is just eating it all up. This we know. Varys talks about without the lies, we have chaos, and chaos is a pit. Without the lies, Tywin is in a pit. Without the lies, Olenna might be in a pit. So they must hold on to them and use them and try to just concentrate on the climb. And I think they're two characters. Donald Long in his tweet to the show here talked about power versus power, and power being power. I think both these two characters do what they need to do to move forward and show their own kind of power. So that is why it's a great scene. Shout out to them. And we want to do an ode to Esme Bianco, who was, again, Roz. If you didn't follow her personal story in life, she recently revealed a lot of abuse, sexual assault, human trafficking, a lot of things at the hands of her former boyfriend, who we all know is Marilyn Manson. She came out with that, and it not only do I have a lot of respect for her and hope she continues to get the healing she needs. And if you follow her, she has some organizations that champion that trauma recovery and assault recovery and survivors recovery. So, as a Game of Thrones family, we should be proud of where she is and support her on her journey. And she's just she's a wonderful performer. And again, Roz was this pilot episode character. And what are we going to do? And she made an impact, and they continued the character. She's not a book character. So it's a death that is disturbing in a way. It's a death that, in terms of Game of Thrones deaths, is memorable. And it's a character that's only around for a short amount of time. But Esme Bianco, I think, deserves all the credit in the world for who she is as a person and what she was brave enough to do in the real world, to say, and also just for her contributions to the show. So tip the cap to her as she heads on out on the show. There it is. That's my look at The Climb. That's right. The Climb, Season 3, Episode 6. What do you think about the episode? Let me know. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment, like, subscribe. All those wonderful things. We're going to start to build out the Casterly Talk YouTube channel here. We are part of the Good People Association, and our podcast is available wherever you can find podcasts. If you've been subscribed for a while, it's in the same spot. But don't forget, we're part of Blue Wire and the Good People Association Podcast Network. If you are watching here right now in September and October of 2021, we have a Kickstarter going for Good People Association and our board game Futility, the actual game of living. Link down below if you'd like to support. We're over 70% supported, racing towards our 100% support goal, but we're going to want to go beyond, hit some of those stretch goals. So check it out. Just search Futility on Kickstarter if you're listening on a podcast and want a direct link. You can follow me at Ken Knapsack. As I said, if you have a question about anything related to Game of Thrones, use the hashtag Casterly Talk as we start to build, expand, and get ready for House of the Dragon. A little bit of casting confirmation news lately. Some things going on. Nothing too giant that I felt deserves special attention. But when some news like that comes out, I guarantee you we will be doing special Casterly Talk episodes, more shows on the way, guests, panelists, all those kind of things. We got it coming here, but you are in the right spot. Talk about chaos out there in the fandom world. It's all about the climb. So climb with us here at Casterly Talk. That is it for this week, my friends. We'll see you very soon. Bye.